You have given birth to a bastard son.
Mommy, am I a bastard child?
No, darling.
X and his mistress called her son a bastard. Then her husband showed up with a convoy. Distinguished viewers, welcome to Luxury True Life Stories. Please like and subscribe for more amazing real-life luxury stories. Now, let's get into the story. Ravenport was a peaceful coastal city known for its quiet streets, small cafes, and calm harbor views. Among its residents was Sophia Friedrich, a gentle and hard-working woman who lived a simple but meaningful life. She worked at Lighthouse Publishing, where she spent her days editing manuscripts and helping writers refine their stories. Sophia loved books, quiet routines, and meaningful work. She believed success was not about wealth, but about living with purpose and kindness. Sophia was raised by supportive parents, Daniel and Margaret Friedrich, who taught her strong values of honesty, compassion, and education. Because of their influence, Sophia often volunteered in community literacy programs and charity projects around the city. Her best friend Emily Hart admired her calm strength and often said Sophia had a rare ability to stay positive even during difficult moments. Although her life was peaceful, Sophia quietly hoped to someday meet someone who shared her values and dreams. She believed in love built on trust and respect, unaware that soon someone would enter her life and begin a journey that would change her future forever. In another part of Ravenport lived David Clinton, a man whose life was driven by ambition and recognition. Unlike Sophia, David believed his success meant influence, wealth, and a powerful reputation. He worked as the founder of a growing technology consulting firm, spending long hours building connections with investors and corporate executives. David was intelligent and confident, and many people admired his determination. However, beneath his polished appearance was a restless desire to climb higher in society. David grew up in a household that constantly emphasized achievement. His father, Richard Clinton, had been a strict financial advisor who believed his success defined a person's worth, while his mother, Elaine Clinton, expected her son to become someone influential. Because of this upbringing, David learned early to chase opportunities and avoid anything that might slow down his progress. He loved expensive suits, luxury restaurants, and high-profile business events where powerful people gathered. Despite his busy lifestyle, David often attended networking events around the city to expand his influence. At one of these professional gatherings, surrounded by investors and young professionals discussing business ideas, he would soon encounter someone whose calm personality was completely different from his own. That meeting would begin a relationship that neither of them realized would shape the course of their lives. One evening, Ravenport hosted a large professional networking event at the historic Grand Harbor Hall, a place often used for conferences, charity events, and university gatherings. The hall was filled with young professionals, entrepreneurs, and creative thinkers exchanging ideas and opportunities. Sophia attended the event with her best friend Emily Hart, hoping to meet writers and publishers who might collaborate with Lighthouse Publishing. She wore a simple navy dress and carried her usual calm confidence, preferring meaningful conversations over loud social circles. Across the room stood David Clinton, speaking with several investors about his technology consulting company. His confident tone and polished appearance made him stand out among the crowd. While moving between groups, David eventually noticed Sophia speaking thoughtfully with a group of editors about literature and education programs. Her calm intelligence caught his attention immediately. Curious, he approached the conversation and introduced himself. Unlike most people he met at business events, Sophia didn't seem impressed by status or ambition. She simply spoke honestly about her work and the importance of helping people learn and grow. The conversation lasted far longer than either of them expected. They spoke about books, travel, career goals, and the future they hoped to build for themselves. David was surprised by how refreshing Sophia's perspective felt, while Sophia found David's drive fascinating. Before the evening ended, they exchanged contact information and promised to meet again. Neither of them realized that this simple introduction at a networking event was the beginning of a relationship that would eventually shape both their lives in ways they could never predict. After their first meeting at Grand Harbor Hall, Sophia and David began seeing each other more often. Their early dates were simple but meaningful. Sometimes they met at small cafes near the marina, where they talked for hours about their dreams and future plans. Other times they explored bookstores, art galleries, and quiet parks around Ravenport. Sophia appreciated David's confidence and ambition, while David admired Sophia's intelligence and calm personality. Their differences seemed to balance each other perfectly. As months passed, their relationship grew stronger. David introduced Sophia to his parents, Richard and Elaine Clinton, during a formal dinner at an elegant restaurant. Although his parents were proud of David's career ambitions, they were surprised by Sophia's modest lifestyle and gentle personality. Sophia also introduced David to her parents, Daniel and Margaret Friedrich, who welcomed him warmly and appreciated the respect he showed their daughter. Friends like Emily Hart and David's colleague Lucas Meyer often joined them during social gatherings, watching their relationship develop with excitement. 2 years later, on a quiet evening by the harbor where they had shared many conversations, David surprised Sophia with a proposal. As the sunset reflected across the water, he spoke about building a successful future together and asked her to marry him. Sophia, emotional and hopeful about their life ahead, happily accepted. Their wedding soon followed, a beautiful ceremony attended by family, friends, and colleagues. At that moment, it seemed like the beginning of a perfect life together, one filled with promise, partnership, and shared dreams. The first months of Sophia and David's marriage felt warm and promising. They moved into a modern apartment overlooking Ravenport's harbor, a place filled with large windows and soft morning light. Sophia decorated the home with bookshelves, plants, and small pieces of art she collected from local galleries. She enjoyed creating a peaceful environment where they could relax after long days of work. In the evenings, she often prepared simple dinners while David shared stories about his business meetings and new clients. However, as time passed, subtle changes began to appear. David's company started growing quickly, and with that growth came constant pressure to compete with larger firms. He spent more time attending high-profile business events and meeting wealthy investors. Conversations at home slowly shifted from shared dreams to discussions about money, reputation, and social influence. Sophia noticed that David seemed less interested in the simple joys they once shared, like quiet walks by the harbor or long conversations about books and ideas. Sophia tried to support him, believing the stress of business expansion was temporary. But David became increasingly focused on status and success. He began measuring life by achievements and financial growth, while Sophia still believed in balance, kindness, and community work. Though they still cared about each other, their priorities were slowly drifting apart. Neither of them realized that this growing distance would soon open the door for someone new to enter David's life and change everything. As David's business continued to expand, he began attending more corporate investment conferences and elite networking events across the region. One evening he was invited to a prestigious business summit held at the Royal Crescent Hotel, a gathering where entrepreneurs, investors, and executives discussed partnerships and future ventures. The event was filled with confident personalities, polished conversations, and quiet competition among ambitious professionals. It was at this event that David first encountered Stella Pascal. Stella Pascal was known in business circles for her sharp intelligence and powerful presence. She came from a wealthy family that had long been involved in international investments and luxury real estate. Unlike Sophia's gentle and reserved personality, Stella was bold, stylish, and highly strategic in everything she did. She dressed elegantly and spoke with confidence, quickly commanding attention whenever she entered a room. Stella believed that success came from calculated decisions, strong alliances, and a willingness to pursue influence wherever it could be found. When David and Stella were introduced through a mutual investor, the conversation quickly turned to business opportunities and ambitious expansion plans. Stella admired David's hunger for success and encouraged his desire to grow beyond Ravensport's local business scene. David, in turn, was fascinated by Stella's confidence and connections in powerful financial circles. Their professional conversations soon became frequent meetings, and Stella's constant praise for David's ambition began to shape his thinking. What started as a business relationship slowly began to blur into something far more complicated, setting the stage for changes that would deeply affect the life David had once promised Sophia. After meeting Stella Pascal, David's schedule became even busier than before. What started as occasional business meetings soon turned into frequent dinners, strategy discussions, and investment negotiations. David often told Sophia that he needed to attend important events or meet potential partners late into the evening. At first, Sophia believed him completely. She understood how demanding business could be, and she continued supporting his ambitions with patience and encouragement. However, the atmosphere at home slowly began to change. David returned later each night, often distracted and focused on his phone or laptop. When Sophia tried to talk about her day or discuss their plans for the future, David seemed distant and impatient. He frequently spoke about expansion, wealth, and opportunities that required him to build connections with powerful people. Meanwhile, Sophia continued her work at the publishing company and her volunteer programs, believing that their different priorities could still exist peacefully together. But as weeks turned into months, the emotional distance between them became impossible to ignore. David was increasingly influenced by Stella's vision of success and power, and he began to view Sophia's simple lifestyle as something that slowed him down. Conversations that once felt warm now turned into quiet disagreements about values and direction. Sophia sensed that something was changing in David, though she didn't yet understand how deeply Stella's presence had begun to reshape his life. The tension in Sophia and David's home eventually reached a point where silence replaced the warmth that once filled their marriage. Even the beautiful apartment overlooking the harbor felt different now, less like a shared home and more like a place where two people simply lived under the same roof. Sophia continued trying to hold on to the relationship they had built together, hoping that the pressure of David's work would eventually settle. She suggested simple things that once made them happy, like taking a short trip outside the city or spending a quiet weekend together without work. David, however, had begun to see life through a very different lens. Influenced by Stella Pascal's constant encouragement about ambition and influence, he started believing that success required sacrifices, sometimes even personal relationships. To him, Sophia's calm lifestyle and community work felt disconnected from the powerful world he was now trying to enter. Their conversations turned into arguments about priorities. Sophia spoke about loyalty and balance, while David spoke about growth, reputation, and opportunity. One evening, after another long and tense discussion, David made a decision that changed everything. He told Sophia that their lives were moving in different directions and that continuing the marriage would only hold them both back. The words shocked Sophia, who had spent years believing they were building a life together. Soon after, the process of separation began, and their marriage came to an end. Sophia left the apartment with quiet dignity, carrying the emotional weight of a relationship she had once believed would last forever, unaware that this painful ending would eventually lead her toward an entirely different future. After the divorce, Sophia Friedrich chose not to remain trapped in bitterness or regret. Instead, she quietly rebuilt her life in Ravensport with the same calm strength that had always defined her. She moved into a smaller apartment closer to the city center, a cozy place surrounded by bookstores, cafes, and the public library she often visited. Though the end of her marriage had been painful, Sophia refused to allow it to define her future. She returned her full focus to Lighthouse Publishing, where her dedication and creativity soon earned the respect of both colleagues and authors. Outside of work, Sophia devoted more time to community projects. She volunteered at literacy programs that helped children and young adults develop reading and writing skills. She also worked closely with local charities that supported education initiatives in underserved communities. Her kindness and commitment gradually made her well known among several non-profit organizations in the region. People admired her ability to remain positive and focused despite personal hardships. Her best friend Emily Hart remained by her side during this time, often reminding Sophia that difficult endings sometimes create the space for unexpected new beginnings. As Sophia's involvement in humanitarian work grew, she began receiving invitations to larger charity conferences and international social impact forums. These events gathered leaders, philanthropists, and policymakers from different countries who shared an interest in education and community development. Sophia initially attended simply to learn and contribute ideas, never expecting that one particular event would introduce her to someone whose life carried far greater influence than she could imagine. That meeting would quietly begin a new chapter in her life, one that would reshape her future in ways completely different from her past. One spring afternoon, Sophia attended an international humanitarian conference held at the elegant Aurora Convention Center, a gathering where educators, philanthropists, and policymakers discussed global education initiatives. The event was larger than the conferences Sophia usually attended, bringing together influential leaders from many countries. She arrived early, carrying a folder of notes about literacy programs and community education projects she had been helping organize in Ravenport. For Sophia, the event was simply another opportunity to learn and share ideas that could help people. Among the distinguished guests attending the conference was Michael Vincent, a respected national leader known for his calm leadership and commitment to social progress. Michael had built a reputation for integrity and thoughtful decision-making throughout his career. Despite holding one of the most powerful positions in his country, he was known for speaking quietly and listening carefully to others. His advisors and security team often noted that he preferred meaningful conversations over public attention. That afternoon, he attended several discussions about education reform and community development. During one of the smaller discussion sessions, Sophia was invited to share her experiences working with literacy programs. She spoke calmly about how simple educational opportunities could transform communities. Her sincerity and clarity caught the attention of several attendees, including Michael Vincent. After the session ended, he approached her to thank her for her thoughtful presentation. The conversation was simple at first, focused on education, social responsibility, and the power of knowledge. Yet there was a quiet understanding between them. Neither of them realized that this brief conversation at a humanitarian conference would soon grow into a connection that would change both of their lives. After their first conversation at the Aurora Convention Center, Sophia Frederick and Michael Vincent continued speaking during the remaining sessions of the conference. Their discussions were never loud or dramatic. Instead, they were thoughtful and calm, often centered on education, social responsibility, and the importance of leadership guided by compassion. Michael was impressed by Sophia's genuine dedication to helping communities, while Sophia admired Michael's humility despite the enormous responsibilities he carried. Over the following weeks, Michael occasionally contacted Sophia to continue their discussions about literacy initiatives and community programs. Their conversations gradually extended beyond professional topics. They spoke about books they enjoyed, cities they had visited, and the values that shaped their lives. Sophia appreciated how Michael listened carefully before speaking, a trait she rarely saw in people with such powerful positions. Meanwhile, Michael found comfort in Sophia's sincerity and calm outlook on life. Because of Michael's public role, their meetings were always private and carefully arranged. They often met in quiet libraries, peaceful gardens, or small cafes away from large crowds. Their connection developed slowly but naturally, built on mutual respect and understanding rather than excitement or pressure. Neither rushed the relationship, yet both quietly realized that something meaningful was growing between them, a connection that felt steady, sincere, and very different from anything either of them had experienced before. As months passed, the bond between Sophia Frederick and Michael Vincent grew stronger. Their conversations became a steady part of their lives, filled with thoughtful discussions about their work, personal values, and hopes for the future. Michael admired Sophia's quiet strength and compassion, while Sophia appreciated the sincerity and discipline that shaped Michael's leadership. Their connection felt calm and genuine, built not on excitement but on trust and mutual respect. However, Michael's public position meant that every aspect of his personal life was constantly watched by the media and political observers. Because of this, they both understood that if their relationship became public too quickly, it could attract attention that might disrupt both Michael's responsibilities and Sophia's peaceful life. After careful discussion, they decided to keep their relationship private for the time being. Only a few trusted individuals from Michael's closest circle knew about Sophia. Eventually, Michael proposed to Sophia during a quiet evening in a private garden outside the city. There was no large audience, no cameras, and no public announcement, only a sincere promise of partnership and support. Sophia accepted with calm happiness, understanding the unusual circumstances of their lives. Soon after, they were married in a small private ceremony attended by only a handful of trusted witnesses. Though the world did not know about their marriage, both Sophia and Michael felt certain they had begun a new chapter together, one built on loyalty, respect, and shared purpose. Not long after their quiet marriage, Sophia and Michael welcomed a new joy into their lives, the birth of their son, Joseph Vincent. The day Joseph was born was calm and filled with quiet happiness rather than public celebration. Because Michael's position required privacy, the news of Joseph's birth was shared only with a small circle of trusted individuals. For Sophia, holding her son for the first time felt like the beginning of an entirely new world. The small child quickly became the center of her life. Joseph grew into a cheerful and curious child. His bright eyes and gentle laughter filled Sophia's home with warmth. Sophia spent most of her time caring for him while continuing her community education projects whenever possible. She loved reading stories to him, taking him for walks in the park, and watching him discover the world with innocent excitement. Michael, despite his demanding responsibilities, made every effort to spend time with his family whenever he could. Even brief visits brought happiness to the quiet home they shared. Although their life together remained mostly private, Sophia felt grateful for the peace and stability that surrounded her son. Joseph was growing in a loving environment, protected from the public attention that followed Michael's leadership role. Sophia focused on giving him a calm and happy childhood, unaware that events from her past would soon reappear in an unexpected way, events that would place her and her son in the center of a situation no one could have predicted. While Sophia focused on raising Joseph and continuing her community work, David Clinton was moving deeper into elite business circles. His technology consulting company had grown significantly through several partnerships and high-value contracts. Much of that success came from his close collaboration with Stella Pascal, whose family connections opened doors to investors and influential executives. Together they attended exclusive gatherings where wealth, ambition, and influence shaped every conversation. Stella enjoyed the attention that came with these powerful social environments. She was confident, fashionable, and always aware of how to position herself among wealthy entrepreneurs and political figures. David, influenced by her outlook, became increasingly focused on reputation and visibility. The two of them were often seen together at luxury hotels, business summits, and charity banquets. Within those circles they presented themselves as a strong partnership, admired by many for their shared ambition. During this period, an invitation arrived for one of the most prestigious events in the region, a grand charity gala hosted by the Vincent Foundation, an organization known for supporting education and humanitarian programs. The gala promised to attract high-profile guests from business, government, and philanthropy. Stella immediately recognized the opportunity for visibility and insisted they attend. David agreed, seeing the event as another chance to strengthen his influence among the city's most powerful figures. Neither of them realized that this same event would also bring someone from David's past back into his path in a way he never expected. Several weeks before the gala, Sophia Frederick received a formal invitation from the Vincent Foundation requesting her presence at their annual charity event. The foundation had long supported education initiatives and literacy programs, many of which Sophia had contributed to through her volunteer work. The invitation was written with appreciation for her efforts in community development, recognizing the impact her programs had made in helping children gain access to learning opportunities. Sophia read the letter carefully, feeling both honored and slightly surprised. Attending such a large public event was not something Sophia usually did, especially since she preferred smaller gatherings focused on meaningful discussions rather than social attention. However, the gala was important for raising funds for education projects she deeply believed in. After considering it for a few days, she decided to attend. She planned to go quietly, support the cause, and return home without attracting unnecessary attention. For Sophia, the event was simply another chance to help expand opportunities for communities in need. On the evening of the gala, Sophia prepared carefully and chose a simple yet elegant dress suitable for the formal occasion. She brought Joseph with her, wanting her young son to see the kind of events that supported the work she cared about. As they arrived at the beautifully decorated hall where the gala was being held, Sophia felt calm and composed. She had no idea that among the many guests attending that evening would be two people from her past, David Clinton and Stella Pascal, and that the night was about to unfold in a way that would surprise everyone present. The grand ballroom hosting the charity gala glowed with warm light from crystal chandeliers hanging high above polished marble floors. Elegant music played softly as guests moved between tables, greeting one another and discussing the charitable projects the evening was meant to support. Sophia walked into the hall holding Joseph's hand, greeting a few familiar faces from the education community. She kept her presence modest, focusing on conversations about literacy programs rather than the luxurious atmosphere surrounding the event. Across the room, David Clinton and Stella Pascal had already begun drawing attention. Stella wore a striking evening gown that reflected the bright lights of the ballroom, while David moved confidently among investors and executives he recognized. They were enjoying the admiration and conversations that came with being part of the elite business crowd. While speaking with a group of guests near the central hall, David's eyes suddenly paused on a familiar figure across the room. For a moment he simply stared. Standing near one of the tables was Sophia, calmly speaking with several charity organizers while Joseph stood beside her. David had not expected to see her again, especially at an event attended by influential people. Stella noticed his sudden silence and followed his gaze. When she realized who Sophia was, curiosity quickly turned into quiet amusement. Neither of them knew that this unexpected encounter was about to turn the peaceful evening into the most shocking moment many guests in that room would ever witness. David and Stella slowly approached the section of the ballroom where Sophia stood speaking with the few guests. The conversation around the table was calm and respectful, centered on education funding and community programs. Sophia noticed David before he reached her, but she remained composed. Years had passed since their divorce, and she had moved forward with her life. She simply offered a polite nod, hoping the encounter would remain brief and civil. Stella, however, had a very different attitude. She looked Sophia up and down with a faint smile that carried more mockery than friendliness. David, influenced by Stella's confidence and the presence of wealthy guests around them, allowed his pride to take control. In a tone loud enough for nearby people to hear, he began questioning Sophia about why she had brought a child to such a formal gathering. Stella joined in with sarcastic remarks, suggesting that Sophia was trying to gain sympathy by appearing at a high-profile event. The situation quickly became uncomfortable for several guests standing nearby. Stella's voice grew sharper as she made a cruel comment about the child standing beside Sophia. With a dismissive laugh, she referred to Joseph as a bastard, implying that the boy had no respectable family background. David, instead of stopping the insult, stood silently beside her. Sophia remained calm despite the humiliation, gently holding Joseph close while the surrounding crowd began whispering in shock. At that exact moment, the sound of vehicles arriving outside the building began to draw everyone's attention toward the entrance of the gala hall. As murmurs spread across the ballroom, the sound of multiple vehicles stopping outside the grand entrance grew louder. Guests began turning toward the tall glass doors as security personnel moved into position. Moments later, the doors opened and several uniformed officers entered first, creating a clear path through the hall. Behind them, surrounded by an official security detail, walked President Michael Vincent. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Conversations stopped, and guests stood respectfully as the respected leader entered the gala. Many people had expected that Michael Vincent might appear later in the evening since the event was connected to the Vincent Foundation, but his arrival at that exact moment surprised everyone. David and Stella also turned toward the entrance, momentarily forgetting the tense situation they had just created. Michael walked calmly through the hall, his presence quiet yet commanding. His eyes moved across the room until they stopped on Sophia and Joseph standing near the center of the gathering. Without hesitation, he approached them directly. When he reached Sophia, he placed a reassuring hand gently on her shoulder before turning toward the crowd. In a clear and steady voice, he addressed the guests, revealing something that immediately shocked the entire room. Sophia Friedrich was his wife, and Joseph was his son. The revelation spread through the hall like a wave of disbelief, leaving David and Stella frozen in stunned silence. For several seconds after President Michael Vincent made his announcement, the entire ballroom remained silent. Guests looked from Sophia to Michael and then toward David Clinton and Stella Pascal, trying to process what had just been revealed. The elegant hall that moments earlier had been filled with conversation now felt heavy with tension and disbelief. Sophia stood calmly beside Michael while Joseph held her hand, unaware of the magnitude of what had just happened. Michael remained composed as he addressed the guests again, explaining that Sophia had chosen to live a quiet life dedicated to education and humanitarian work, away from public attention. Their marriage had been kept private to protect both their family and Michael's political responsibilities. Several members of his security team stepped forward at his signal. One of them spoke quietly with the event organizers, who confirmed that the earlier confrontation had been captured by the ballroom's security cameras. Within minutes, the footage of the incident was reviewed. The recording clearly showed Stella Pascal mocking Sophia and calling Joseph a bastard while David stood beside her, allowing the insult to continue. The behavior had caused public disturbance at a formal charity event attended by many distinguished guests. Acting according to protocol, security officers approached David and Stella calmly but firmly. Guests watched in stunned silence as both of them were escorted away for further questioning. David's confident expression had disappeared, replaced with shock and disbelief, while Stella struggled to understand how quickly the situation had turned against them. After the officers escorted David and Stella away, the tension in the ballroom slowly began to fade. Guests who had witnessed the confrontation now looked at Sophia with respect and sympathy rather than curiosity. Many of them had admired her work in education programs, but now they also understood the quiet strength she carried through years of personal hardship. Michael remained beside her, offering calm reassurance as the event organizers continued the evening's program. The gala eventually returned to its original purpose, supporting education and humanitarian initiatives, but the atmosphere felt different. People approached Sophia to express admiration for her dedication and grace during such a difficult moment. Several leaders of non-profit organizations thanked her again for her contributions to literacy programs and community projects. Joseph, still holding his mother's hand, looked around the beautifully lit hall with innocent curiosity, unaware that the night had marked an important turning point in his family's life. As the evening came to a close, Sophia stepped outside with Michael and Joseph where the presidential convoy waited quietly under the city lights. The cool night air felt peaceful after the dramatic events inside the hall. For Sophia, the past had finally been confronted, and the life she had built with patience and resilience could now move forward openly. Holding Joseph close while Michael stood beside her, she felt a sense of calm certainty that the future ahead of them would be filled with dignity, stability, and the promise of truly new beginnings. And that brings us to the end of today's story. The world of luxury often hides stories deeper than what meets the eye. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating stories on Luxury Jewel Life Stories. Until our next story, take care and stay tuned for more.